Some of you may be wondering what can give you that edge over your opponents, okay? You're closely matched athletically, but what's going to make you just that much better? What ergogenic aid, what supplement, what pill is going to make you a little bit better, a little bit faster than people that we're competing against? And I'll tell you today what can not only make a difference in your athletic performance and give you that edge, but it also can make a difference in your academic life and in your overall health. And that basically is what you eat. And now for the first time, what you eat is really up to you. Okay. So first of all, let me give you my definition of an athlete: someone who values, appreciates, and cares for their body and believes in its abilities and potential and is dedicated to doing what it takes to get there. All right. That goes well beyond the 4:30 to 6:30 practice slot. Okay. It's really kind of a 365-day, 24/7 philosophy of life. So what you eat impacts your energy level, your moods, your performance, how you look and feel, your body's ability to fight everything from colds to cancer. Only 1 out of 4 athletes in a recent study adequately fuels their body. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. It affects your sleep, your energy, your performance, and your susceptibility to injury. So I like to start out with thinking about this spectrum. And the spectrum is not, it's not potato chips and ice cream versus kale and whole wheat bread, okay? This is how we view food and exercise, all right? It's not the foods themselves. So I'm going to ask you if meals are the most stressful part of your day. How often do you take a day off from training? And how do you feel about that when you do? What happens if you don't exercise today? Are you preoccupied with food, with weight, with workouts? If your life is a pie, what percentage of time do you think about food and or exercise? Because I will tell you, if your life is a pie and 90% of it you're thinking about food and exercise and what you eat and how much you work out, I'll tell you right now, that's really no way to live. That is not a high quality life. Do you eat a repetitive diet with strictly low fat foods and little variety? So this to me is what we need to get at. A healthy person is going to view food and exercise with those kind of words, with that approach, with that philosophy, all right? Unhealthy, this is a person who, you know, and I can relate, all right? You know, getting up early every morning and going for that run, that same run, no matter how you feel like crap, you're coming down with the flu, doesn't matter. There's a hurricane outside, but it doesn't matter. I got to get in that run, because I don't want to get fat overnight in one day. It's compulsive, it's obsessive. It's the person who does the same. It's the people that live on one machine. They don't go on the other machines. They don't miss a day. They're on that machine. Or it used to be the Stairmaster. Now it's the, let me see. Yeah, was it one constant time? Now it's like the Helliptical. I call it the Helliptical. But you know, it's what I'm trying to. My approach today is really about trying to encourage you to listen more to your bodies than your minds. Your minds can be filled with a lot of crap, and your bodies often will do a better job of telling you what it really needs. So with that, I am going to briefly go over the pyramid or the plate, however you want to look at it, that you're all familiar with. The bottom of the pyramid is where you should be getting most of your calories. All right, this is 6 to 11 servings. And I have illustrated some of the ones that are best, but there's many, many to choose from. But understand that complex carbs is your body's #1 choice for fuel. It is the gold standard for fuel, all right? So that pretty much tells you right there that a low-carb diet is kind of silly from an athlete's point of view. Well, I would say from anyone's point of view, but especially an athlete. It's really where you're going to get the bulk of your vitamins and your minerals and your fiber and your energy, okay? Fruits and vegetables, every meal should include fruit and or vegetable. Again, there's examples there, but they're all good. And variety is actually really important. Okay, protein. Whether you're a vegetarian or not, you want to have some protein in every meal. Dairy, really important for calcium. And I'll talk more about reaching peak bone mass around the age of 25 to 30. That we'll come back and talk about that. And fats can be, the fat should be a part of your diet. It should be a part of every meal. There's fats like donuts, and there's fats like olive oil, and there's a big difference between the two. They all have a place in your diet. It is important to get in the omega-3s and the omega-6s, which are ever present in salmon and tuna and olive oil and nuts and avocados. Those are really good for you. Okay, so try and think about that too. Let me actually talk a little bit about calcium, all right? So basically, I want you to think of a bank analogy, all right? So over time, in your teens and up to around 25-ish, you can make deposits in your bank account, okay? And make that bank account bigger, hence your bones denser and stronger, okay? The more you get in your bank account, the more deposits you make, calcium, weight-bearing exercise, weight training, the stronger and denser your bones are. Right around age 25 to 30, you can no longer make deposits into your bank account. Whatever you've gotten it up to, that's it. It's now frozen. Your assets are frozen, okay? You can't make any more deposits. So as strong and as dense as you got in your bones, that's it. You read me? So now the best you can do is stay level for the next 30 or so years. You can go down if you don't have adequate calcium and exercise in your diet. Your bones can lose some. Then something happens around in your early 50s. You know what I'm talking about? What happens in your early 50s? Menopause. Right. And withdrawals will be made from your account, whether you like it or not. They will be made from your account. So you're going to start to go down. So it's really important that you get up as high as you can before you level off, before you start going down. And how fast you go down, again, can be dictated on your calcium and exercise habits. So I really encourage you. You're all at a really critical time right now. And I know that at the same time, about 2/3 of American girls do not have enough calcium in their diet. So make sure that that's not you, and that you have, hopefully the exercise is a given if you're here, but the calcium is really important too. All right, so there, and you got one cards, okay? There you go. So that's kind of my dietary advice for the day. Each meal you want to balance, and that's what it should look like, okay? Every day, you can also think too, it's not dairy, calcium I just talked about, iron's really important, and certainly water and fluids. All right. Now, let's talk about dieting. Being about 91% of college-age women do go on a diet at some point or another. We live in a very weight-conscious, thin-conscious culture, which is a lot unhealthy. So a lot of people go about trying to fit into that stereotype by going on a diet. If you want to lose weight, if you feel that you weigh too much, the answer is to go on a diet, supposedly. So I'm going to try and convince you today that that is not the way to go. So when you go on a diet, let me even back up. Your BMR, the rate at which your body burns calories at rest. So if you're just laying in your dorm room, laying in the bed, you are burning calories at that moment in time. That's your basal metabolic rate. Obviously, the higher that is, the better off you are. And that accounts for 60 to 70% of the total energy used by your body, all right? Now, when you go on a diet, your BMR decreases. Your body says, okay, wow, I'm going to have to learn to get along on fewer calories. So it becomes more efficient, and it slows down, and you will burn less calories at rest. This is not a temporary situation. This is kind of a permanent situation. Your body is your adaptive mechanism to dieting or starvation. It's kind of the same thing. The body becomes more efficient and needs less calories. So what your body will sometimes do, if you're not taking in enough calories for it to use for energy, you'll say, well, God, I got to get this energy somewhere. So you'll start burning your own muscle, which is not good. We don't want that. You need all the muscle you got, and then some. So you don't want your body taking that muscle and using that for energy. That's kind of like if I'm sitting in my house and I'm a little chilly and I don't have any wood for the fireplace, so I start ripping my walls down and putting that wood in the fireplace. Not really bright. Dieting, in addition to the fact that physiologically what you see here is your body, the enzymes change, and again, that's kind of what happens, how they change. So it becomes harder for you to burn fat and easier for your body to store fat, and that's how it's trying to survive. The other problem with dieting is that the very ideology of it reinforces a split between the dieter's mind and body. A diet teaches disregard for inner cues like hunger, and instead encourages decisions on what to eat and when to eat and how much to eat based on the diet's rules. So you're setting up a disconnect between your body and your mind, and that's the exact opposite of what I'm trying to talk about today. And this ideology here is a very hallmark of an eating disorder. And dieters are 18 times more likely to have an eating disorder than people who do not diet. The other problem here is the emotional toll and the psychological effects of dieting. Because most of the people that will go on a diet will gain the weight back. We'll talk about that. But people view themselves as a failure when that happens, and not the diet. The diet is the failure, not you. So the emotional toll is huge. Self-loathing, endless dissatisfaction, trouble concentrating, being irritable, fatigued, anxious, and depressed, guilty, and preoccupied with food all the time. Other than that, it's fine. Lori, I can always count on Lori. The rest of you, I don't know what you're sleeping. Because I get really discouraged if you're not laughing at my jokes, and I'm just going to go home. The recidivism rate, as I mentioned, is about 95%. 95% of the people that go on a diet will gain the weight back, and often more than they lost. Okay, so right there, and as we just saw, the very nature of a diet, by decreasing basal metabolic rate, sets you up for failure. It's intrinsically flawed. Okay? And the problem is that there are some real serious health consequences to weight cycling. All right? In a Harvard alumni study done in '98, the alumni who dieted frequently compared to the non-dieters had twice the risk of diabetes, hypertension, and coronary heart disease. I'm not so sure that obesity, quote unquote, causes heart disease or diabetes. I know that is the assumption, and there is a correlation, but a correlation does not mean, I mean, there is a correlation, which is different than saying something is causative. But I do know that weight cycling and losing weight and regaining it is definitively causes problems in this area. As the editors of New England Journal of Medicine put it, the cure for obesity may be worse than the condition. Okay. So to switch gears and to really do a paradigm shift here, to get away from weight being the issue, how do we view food and how do we handle our diets? So one way, and I know there is a tendency for some to gain weight when they first come to college. They're freshman 10, now I think it's the freshman 15, I don't know, whatever it is. But one of the things that I really propose to you to think about is the practice of intuitive eating. There's a book by Evelyn Tribole that I think is excellent, and this is kind of a very different approach that I am really an advocate of. And I'm going to go through the tenets of intuitive eating. One is just honoring your hunger. Hunger is your body's request for fuel. Again, it'll happen approximately every 4 hours, depending on how large a meal you had. And it's a biological urge. Your body is telling you what it needs. When you have to go to the bathroom, your body is telling you it's a biological urge. I got to go to the bathroom. And when you're hungry, your body's saying, you know what, I'm hungry, I need food. It's just biology. When I have to go to the bathroom, I try and go. And when I'm hungry, I try and eat. I don't say, nope, I'm going to do some willpower here, and I'm stronger than this. I'm not going to eat. I'm going to go hungry. You know what? Listen to your bodies. It knows what it needs. Feeling your fullness. So the opposite side of the coin is if I'm going to eat when I'm hungry, I also want to try and recognize my satiety signals and acting on them and stopping when I'm full. This is hard to do when you're multitasking and you're doing 6 things at once, including eating a meal, which many of us do because we are all way too busy. But it's a lot harder to be in tune with what your body is telling you and say, I think I've kind of had enough. Sometimes overeating, that's fine, that's normal. But if that's a pattern, that can be an issue. And this honoring your hunger and feeling your fullness is about listening to your bodies. And if you've been dieting or have a habit of dieting, that's the complete opposite. And you have really moved away and shifted away from listening to what your body tells you. And it can be a difficult shift to come back to that. It's kind of a lost art. Eating with pleasure, satisfaction and pleasure count. It's really what you're really striving for is a balance between health and pleasure. You don't want to just eat foods based on what's good for you, and you don't want to just eat foods that you enjoy. You want a balance of the two, and hopefully they have something in common. But the satisfaction factor is important, and I like to relay a study that I read where they did the word association game with the French and with the Americans, and they said the word chocolate, and the French said delicious, and the Americans said guilty. And I think that kind of speaks to our society. I think in general, the Europeans do a much better job of savoring meals and taking their time with them than we do. And we need to understand the importance of our genetic blueprint. Genes play about a 70% role in weight. So feel free to scream at this point in time if you'd like to. That can be good news, that can be bad news. But you know what? That's a big chunk. And that doesn't mean you are absolutely set in stone what you're going to look like and how much you're going to weigh. But we need to respect that weight is largely genetic. So this means not being unrealistic or overly critical regarding your size. I think of my shoe size analogy, okay? I have big feet. I wear 10.5 size shoes, which actually, if you really want to, don't even exist. The regular stores go up to 10, and then the big shoe stores start at 11, so that's a lot of fun. But my point is that I am not exactly working on trying to get down to a size 6. And that's kind of how I look at bodies, too. We're led to believe that they're readily changeable if you just have some willpower, and that's not accurate. That's not what the research shows us. So, another point I would just want to make is that deprivation leads to overcompensation. So, whether it's food, whether it's sleep, whether it's warmth, if you deprive yourself of one of those, the consequences is that you're going to overdo it on the other end. Okay? If I work a field hockey game at night and I'm freezing my buns off, when I get in my car after the game, do I turn the heat on low? No, you blast it, right? You overcompensate. And if you've been not getting much sleep, which we're going to talk about soon, and you pull an all-nighter and then finally you have a chance to sleep, you are going to sleep a long time to make up for it, all right? If Taryn, maybe, can I walk around or should I say so? Okay. All right, so if I hold Taryn, and I really wouldn't do this, but if I hold Taryn's head under the water for a little while so she can't breathe, right? Is that long enough? Okay. And then I let her come up. How is she going to be breathing? Right? She's going to be breathing normally? No. Do you eat normally after dieting? No. Do you eat normally after skipping a few meals? No. You overcompensate. One of the things that I have really learned in my own weight management is that I do a lot better if I don't let myself get too hungry. And it's kind of like a pendulum. You get hungry, and then you eat, and then you come to satiation, right? And you feel good. But if I let the pendulum come way over here to that I'm starving, that pendulum is going to compensate and come way over here to stuffed, because that's what we tend to do. And it's not just a psychological drive, it is actually a physiological drive, that if you let yourself go without food for longer than you should, your body and mind will crave high-fat, high-sugar foods. And I often relay this story because I felt like I really lived this when I typically have lunch at lunchtime and then would not get home till dinner for after 7. And that was really too long to go without eating. And I would walk in the house, I'd be starved, and I would go straight to the chocolate and the candy and just have a snack the minute I walked in the door, and then later on I'd get around to eating dinner. But I was just literally craving that kind of thing. And then I caught on after a while that now I have a snack drawer at work, and I'm not telling you where it is, especially Lori, because I know how she is. So now, around 4:35, just when I'm actually really kind of busy, but I have a snack. It could be pretzels, could be yogurt, could be some Gorp, some nuts, whatever. And it's amazing, because now when I go home, And it's not willpower, it's just not even a thought. I just kind of walk in the door and I get my dinner ready. I don't even think about going straight for my chocolate stash, which I do have. Okay? As Nancy Clark says, who's a famous sports medicine nutritionist, and we brought her to campus a number of times, an apple now prevents apple pie later. And I have found that to be very true. So real foods, again, my advice, as much as you can, you're better off eating real foods, not foods that are highly processed, not something that comes out of a box. And this is important too for your fuel tanks. What many of us do is, if this was a graph, okay, so in the morning, and this is calories, well, and we're kind of busy, you sleep in, you don't really have breakfast, or you just grabbed a little something. And then it's lunchtime, so you have a little something, and now it's later in the day, you have a big dinner, and then after dinner you have a snack. So your food intake, it looks like that, and it really should look, it should go straight across. Okay, so what you want to make sure you're doing is front loading and getting half your calories in the first half of the day, and the second half in the second half of the day, as opposed to eating the large majority of your calories at the end of the day. Okay, and that's going a long way to, again, your mind's going to work better and your body's going to work better, and it's going to help provide energy for those afternoon practices and games. Another important concept is variety. I think most Americans eat the same 10 to 15 foods throughout the course of the week. So challenge yourself. Nancy Clark says strive for 35. See if you eat 35 different foods in the course of a week. I know I'm guilty of this too. I have like turkey and cheese on a whole wheat bread sandwich every day for lunch, and I get really excited when I try different mustard. Okay, try to do better than I am. Variety, mix it up. I think it's unbelievable. Someone goes shopping for you, they prepare the food for you, they clean it up after you. You just got to sit down and eat it. Man, that is as good as it gets. Enjoy it while you have it. And moderation, everything in moderation, including moderation. The only foods that you should never eat are the ones that have the green stuff growing on them. Okay? But, everything's okay, just in moderation. All right, some good habits. Eating breakfast is huge. I know, I sound like your mother. Include milk or yogurt, a starch, fruit, that's really every meal, right? But that's a good way to start up your day. And it's kind of like going back to my fireplace, throwing wood on the fireplace and revving it up and getting your metabolism going. So it's going to be at an elevated rate the rest of the day. And a lot of those calories that you ingest at breakfast are going to be what helps you through the afternoon practice more so than the lunch calories. It affects you academically. It affects your mood. You guys are irritable enough. You think of that. So have breakfast, fall short of it. Yeah, okay, so there you go. The other thing is, to get really all the nutrients and vitamins and fiber and protein that you need, it's pretty hard to do that in 2 meals a day. You really need to spread that out and fuel your tanks throughout the day and have breakfast. Okay. I also wanted to explain set point. Okay, and it's theoretical, but I think it makes some intuitive sense that we all have a weight within 10 or 15 pounds that our bodies feel at home at. And when you're not doing anything to control your weight, you're eating relatively healthy, and you're being physically active, that's probably about your set point. And that can be good news, and that can be terrible news. But I know when someone approaches me and like, Ellen, I really want to lose about 20 pounds, and I talk to them, and I go through their diet, and they're eating a really healthy, normal diet. There's not much I can do with that. And oh yeah, and they work out a couple hours a day. What are we supposed to do? Are you supposed to now start skipping meals or working out 5 times a day? And the Biggest Loser, they do some crazy things, crazy unhealthy. I'm just waiting for someone to drop dead in the middle of that show sometime. They may them cut that part out, but. They have to go to extreme weight loss. They go to extreme measures. And it would be really interesting and sad, I think, to look at those people a few years later, because I guarantee you that the majority of them have gained the weight back and at a great health risk to themselves. So our bodies are going to try to maintain a certain shape, not shape, but really weight over time. A diet is an attempt to defy our set points and basically puts you at war with your own body and biology. Your body's metabolism and your energy expenditure adjust to caloric deprivation, the diet, or overload in order to try and maintain body weight. And there's lots of studies that I could share with you where they've really increased the calories on people or in diets, and that's what tends to happen. There's a huge variety, first of all, in what happens with people's weight when you do that. All right, water. Some of you, who here heard me talk about water yesterday? Okay, a few. Guess what? You get to hear it again. So the body is 60 to 70% water, and probably is the single most critical element in your diet. I mean, that's what's going to kill you first if you don't have water in your diet. Dehydration affects performance long before it jeopardizes your health. A 2% decrease in your body weight due to fluid loss. You are starting your performance at 85%. Before the game starts, the contest, the race, you're at 85%. So it's really critical that you're hydrating yourselves. The signs and symptoms of heat exhaustion are headache, mental confusion, nausea, dizziness, cramps, and can lead to lack of sweating. And there's a whole range of heat illnesses, but they're serious, and you should really pay attention to your hydration levels. And some of you know that urine is a favorite topic of mine. So monitoring your urine is one of the best foolproof ways of getting a sense of how hydrated or dehydrated you are. Okay, and I'm going to be posting little lovely color charts in the stalls around campus. So if you see me sneaking around, you know what I'm doing. But the lighter in color, the more hydrated you are. And as that urine becomes more and more concentrated and darker and less volume, you're dehydrated. Okay, so that is really important to pay attention to, and make sure it's not just about drinking a big Gatorade or a few glasses of water before that practice or contest. It's about hydrating at every meal and just throughout the day, every day. Okay, that's really important. Healing and nutrition. I often get some questions about, when someone gets hurt, what can I eat to help me get better faster? And it doesn't quite work like that. But if you don't have enough calories in your diet, if you don't have some important nutrients in your diet, it can delay and slow down your healing. Okay, so it does matter. Whoops, I forgot. Okay, that's what you'll see appearing in your bathroom. Stay tuned. And I'm going to get a chart. It's on order for the training room, and it looks pretty much like that. And please don't come in with little cups, okay? But it is important to have some sense of what I'm talking about. So I forgot I put that slide in there. All right. Uh-oh. I think it's... What is that? Push that? Okay. Now push down. Now I go back to... All right, so water. Okay. Sorry. Healing and nutrition. So there's the calories and macronutrient needs. I think during acute injury, actually, your energy needs are increased because the body it takes energy to heal oneself. Your BMR may increase by 15 to 50% based on the severity of the trauma. So be careful about, oh my God, I'm not able to work out now because I'm hurt, so I'm going to eat half of what I normally eat. Wrong, because remember, your basal metabolic rate accounts for almost a good 70% of your caloric intake. So these are some of the things that can be helpful. I think a lot of people think about calcium in milk if they've injured a bone. Great. Protein is certainly important because it's involved in repair and restoration. But I think the number one may be fat, increasing the fat in your diet, and that I am referring specifically to healthy fats to help with the healing process. And these are just some really superfoods that can aid, again, in nutrition and even just performance. Cherries can aid muscle recovery post-exercise. Beets can increase O2 consumption during exercise. Flaxseed is does everything. I mean, it's like the greatest thing since sliced bread. It can improve cardiac efficiency, cognitive function, and about a million other things. So these are just some things to think about that are really high in their potential to help you out. The pregame meal, personally, I think it's a little overrated. I think You cannot eat crap all week and then have this really nice, healthy pregame meal and then do great in the competition the next day. That's not the way it works. So I really think nutrition and a overall healthy diet needs to be a habit and not something you just try and do before the game. In fact, the pregame meal, it may be more important what you don't eat than what you do eat. You know, you don't want to try and eat a whole lot of beans or something before practice unless that's part of your defensive strategy. So solid food, and you know, it varies too. Like some people like to eat really close to and it depends on what you do for your sport, but some people like to eat close to the competition. Other people like to really go into it with more of an empty stomach and don't want anything until 3 hours before. Again, fluids is really critical. Here is one place where you do want to be careful about having a lot of fat in your diet, as in, if it's a breakfast like bacon or sausage, or a meal that's high in fat, because fat takes a long time to digest. It sits in your stomach for a long time and therefore draws the blood supply to your stomach, and you want the blood going to your muscles to provide oxygen. You don't want it going to your stomach to help digest that bacon sandwich you had. So there's my advice on pregame meals. You should all be aware of the metabolic window. Your muscles are most receptive to replacing glycogen, which is what they use for energy, at this time, this 15 to 45 minute post-exercise window. And we're looking for a carbohydrate protein mix and I've given you, it's basically a 4-to-1 carbohydrate to protein ratio. And I'm giving you some examples of what that might look like. Chocolate milk is one of the most famous and easiest, and that is a really good recovery drink. Olive oil, omega-3 fish, peanut butter on a bagel. There's lots of examples. Some of the Powerade and some of those drinks can be helpful. They tend to be a little high in sugar, and that's probably a more costly way of going about it than just a chocolate milk or food. But keep in mind, and especially in a situation where you're in perhaps a tournament where you need to go again shortly after a workout, it's really helpful to think about taking advantage of this metabolic window and refueling. Don't forget to rehydrate as well. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Okay. And this slide I just added based on the recent week we had and how humid it was and how much sweating people are doing. So it's kind of my Beyond Bananas slide. We all know, if you sweat a lot, replace your potassium, and it is, so it's magnesium, sodium, chloride, and K is potassium. Those are the ones you really want to think about. But there's a lot of ways to go about it. So bananas are great, but here are some other foods that are high in the electrolytes you're looking for to replace the ones that you lose when you're sweating. And water is number one, okay? But in addition to water, if you really lost a lot of sweat, like in some of the last few days we've had, you do want to think about some of these foods. I call that my cramp prevention plan. Okay. And thank you. You're not done with me. Are there any questions on any of that? I think there's an awful lot of misinformation out there about nutrition and food and weight. So if any of you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them. Too shy? You know it all? Okay. All right. So you're not done with me yet. Sorry. Here we are.